BookTube Nation, I'm Sam here again with A Baron and Bee Books, and today I have for you my top 21 of 2020. So, yeah, a top 20 sounds great, but I wanted to include a reread because it's been probably like 20 years since I read the book, and it's one of my favorites. So I couldn't not include it, but you'll have to wait to see what this is. These will be counting up to my favorite book of the year. I've put them, actually, the way I did it was I looked at all my books, I looked at all my favorite books, and I just put them in the order that felt right when I did it. So I wanted it to be kind of like a just instant reaction. So that's what you're gonna get, and this is part 1 of 2. I also had a honorable mentions video, which I will list down below for you to peruse at your leisure if you'd like. It was a really amazing reading year, so I have a lot of lovely books to share with you. The first one I wanted to discuss today is Passing by Nella Larsen. And this is a short little book. This is one of the Macmillan Collector's Library editions, and I really am enjoying these. They're beautiful, but for me, they're really easy to read. The print's a little small, but I find them lovely. And coming in 2021, I'm going to do a video about my current collection. This was lovely. I picked this up because I'm trying to collect most of all this collection, and everybody was talking this year about The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, which is on my physical TBR, and I'm going to try and get to in 2021. But from what I've heard, this book is based on that. What is it about? It's basically about 2 women who are able to pass as white, and one decides to marry a man who's an extreme racist, and she doesn't even tell him, obviously, and so she has the life there. And then about another woman that marries a black man, and they have a life. And then when the 2 friends re-meet up and things happen, and it's all about their story. So in this book, it really is, it's a little book, but it really packs a punch. And the ending, it was so funny. Like, as you're reading it, you kind of have this sense of unease, but I don't want to spoil it because the ending is amazing. But it's just like, I remember feeling like that's not the book I thought I was reading. Like, it just kind of is like completely out of nowhere and really surprising, and one I would definitely plan on rereading in the future. It just seems like maybe I would miss some things and maybe I could pick them up again the second time. I would give Passing a try by Nella Larsen. I really enjoyed this. Next is A Curse as Dark as Gold, and this is by Elizabeth C. Bunce. This is a William C. Morris Debut Award winner. This was lovely. If you know anything about my channel, you know I read a lot of fairy tale inspired books, and this is an older one. It's a YA, young YA, I would say. But it was just lovely. It's a very loose retelling of Rumpelstiltskin, and it's all centered around this mill, and this young lady is trying to like save it for her family, and there's like some dark kind of magic that starts to happen, and it's all about her struggle to survive and her struggle to keep her family's property. And she starts to make deals because Rumpelstiltskin. I think if you enjoy fairy tale retellings, I would highly recommend this. If you enjoy historical fiction, like fantasy and YA, I would definitely recommend this. But yeah, I found this absolutely delightful, and I would love to read it again one day. Next is The Glass Woman by Caroline Lee. Okay, this book, when I first read it, it's really dark and really gritty, and there are a lot of trigger warnings in here for like sexual assault and abuse, and just check it out if any of that is something that affects you personally. I found this book really sad and really beautiful at the same time. So it's set in this really like desolate rural place, village, and it has Jane Eyre vibes. But the funny thing about it is it's set in like a small like house. There's only a couple rooms, and so unlike those sweeping mansions that give you that water behind the doors feeling, this has a very close, very personal eeriness to it. It's almost like the problem, you can't distance yourself from it, you know? It's like right in your face all the time. This book is a lot about marriages and marrying the wrong people, and about being in a place where you're removed from all the things you know and trying to survive, and love in so many different forms, and how, you know, you can grow to care for somebody in many different ways. And there are beautiful love stories in this. There's a lot of diversity in here. It just, at the same time, it makes me smile and makes me want to weep. Like, those emotions, just synonymous. Like, they're just, yeah. If you enjoy books with a really desolate landscape, I might try this. If you enjoy books like Rebecca or Jane Eyre, I might try this. This is darker though. Like, this is dark. It goes there. It doesn't just go up to the edge. It jumps right in. So you have to be prepared to read about some pretty graphic things. However, if you can get through that, it is rewarding, I think. And I think this book will stay with me for a long time. So, not the warm and fuzzies like the last book I talked about, but one that definitely I think has staying power. Okay, next I'll put a picture up here, is Malachis Cove by Anthony Trollope. And this is a short story by Anthony Trollope towards the end of October, and I even went a little outside of October. I was really on an Anthony Trollope reading kick, and I wanted to read one more, and so I picked this up, and I really loved this. Again, I feel like it has staying power. It's a beautiful little story. It takes place near the coast. There's this family that work in like the seaweed, and it's a really dangerous area where like it's real easy to drown, but the family has been doing it for a long time, and they know all the tricks of the trade and how to do it. And somebody else starts to come and try and farm their area, and of course it turns into kind of a battle, but it just unfolds about their lives together and these two different families and how they intertwine, and you know what it means to sacrifice and what it means to try and be kind to those who maybe weren't set out to be your friends, maybe they were your enemies, but how kindness develops and can turn into other kindness and other goodness. And yeah, I don't want to say more than that because it is a short story and it's a really quick read. But if you like Anthony Trollope, if you like short stories, if you like literary fiction, I mean, if you enjoy stuff set on like a coastal water setting, I would give it a try. I really loved it. Another short story I read this year was The Birds by Daphne du Maurier. Now, I just read The Birds out of here. I haven't finished the rest of the collection yet, but I loved The Birds. I really enjoyed the setting. It's a very rural, rustic setting. The suspense is so good. To me, I preferred it to Rebecca. Like, I know Rebecca is her, like, everybody loves Rebecca, but I don't know, like something about the way that this was written, and the main character, this man, and he's trying to take care of his family, and I don't want to give anything away because it's short and it's suspenseful and there's tons of spoilers. But if you haven't seen it before or read it before and you enjoy Daphne du Maurier, definitely read The Birds. If you enjoy short stories, I would say pick it up. If you like suspense, pick it up. It was just so good. Next is a buddy read that I did with my mom, and this is The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. Now, I know this was like a booktube darling. It's been all over the internet. Very popular, and for a good reason, I think. It kind of makes me feel a little bit like The Glass Woman. Like, it's very beautiful and sad at the same time. And I love historical fiction, and I don't feel like a lot of historical fiction is set in Amsterdam in like the 1600s. So I think if you want a story set in that place and time, this is a great choice. This book is basically about a young woman who has to marry, again, because of like financial implications. So she sets out and her mom, this man comes to her town and the marriage is arranged. And so she marries this man and she goes to his home, and he's very wealthy and very powerful in the area. And it's all about how like she shows up, and she's again in this area where she doesn't know anyone. She doesn't have any of her family for support. And it's about their lives together and their lives in their home. But then he gives her this gift, and it's this dollhouse, and really weird things start to happen. And that's kind of like a nice side point to the story. But for me, that's not really what this book is about. I feel like this book is about woman empowerment. It's about love in all its many forms, and how it doesn't always look like what you think it's gonna look like, but it can still be beautiful. It's filled with diversity. It's filled with different points of view. And I think if you like historical fiction and you like diversity and you want to check out this time period, like if any of those things sound good to you, I would give this a try. I really enjoyed this. And this is another book that's one of those that you kind of think about a lot after you finish reading it. And there's a great adaptation out there too. So, that's always a bonus. Next, we have Lucy Foley's The Guest List. I love this. I don't typically read like thrillers or mystery novels. It's not usually my go-to, but I love Clue, the movie Clue. I love that movie. And this had feelings of that for me. And what I realized is that I really love like golden age mystery. I love mysteries that don't have a lot of gore, that don't have a lot of like blood or anger, none of that. I mean, there is anger, but it's not, you know what I mean? It's not like that in your face, like version we see in our movies and TV today. So this is basically a classic whodunit book, and I loved it. I thought it was great. It takes place on this island, and it's like really desolate. And again, apparently that's a buzzword for me. I like books that take place in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, there's this wedding, and it's about all these people that are invited to the wedding, and one of them dies. And it's about, it tells each of their stories and how it leads up to the day when the person's murdered and why it happens, and how there are so many different motives. And it's just really intriguing. I really love this. If you're looking for a mystery or like a classic whodunit and you haven't read this yet, I would definitely give this a chance. Okay, next is one I really loved. I don't know how universally this book recommends, but I really loved it. And that's The Scent Keeper by Eyre Bauermeister. This book connects with me on a lot of different levels. It has echoes of my childhood in it, and I read it at a time when I really kind of needed that. So I had like a personal connection with this book. But this book is about a lot of things, but mainly it's about this young girl, and it's like a coming of age story. And she lives on this island alone with her father, and he is a scent keeper. And so he basically has all these different bottles filled with all these different scents, and he has this whole room, and they're all labeled. And so you have to kind of suspend a little bit of disbelief to buy into this one. And eventually the setting does change as she grows. But I just thought that this book was beautiful for a lot of reasons. It discusses grief. It discusses like abuse. It discusses love. It discusses the bond between a parent and their children. I loved this, and I think if you have a connection to like a youth by the water. And if you like books that deal with senses, like on the back it recommends Chocolat, which I think is actually a really good book to say is like this one, because that's a lot about taste, that book, and this is a lot about scent. So if you're one of those people that sometimes you smell stuff and it reminds you of something when you were a kid, that kind of feeling is one of the reasons I love this book. So I don't think it's for everybody, but I think if any of what I've been talking about sounds like it might be your thing, I would definitely give it a try. Plus, it's beautiful. So, you know, as a thing itself, it's beautiful. And yeah, I really, really love this book. Next, I finally did it, you guys. I finally did it. I read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Brontë. Now, if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know that I tend to push off books that are overhyped or super popular. I'm always looking for kind of the diamond in the rough. But I told myself last year I was going to read some of the most popular ones. They're popular for a reason. And yes, that was correct. So I finally read Jane Eyre, and I'm so glad I did. I love Gothic stories. This book is that. I love stories that are coming to age. This book is that. I love books where you have a strong female protagonist. This book is that. Yeah, so this book basically follows Jane through her whole life. She grows up, becomes a governess, and she moves into a hall with this very powerful man, Mr. Rochester, and it's about their relationship and her life and how it unfolds, and his past, and how someone's past can change your future, and decisions that you make when you're young can have a lasting impact on your future. The ending, a lot of people, it's very controversial. I think it's okay with me. Like, I think it sits well with me. I could have seen it go another way and been happy too, but I get it. Like, it makes sense for Jane to me. It's maybe not what I would have done, but I can appreciate that that's what she did. I really love this book, and if you like classics, if you like Gothic literature, if you like coming of age stories, and you haven't read this yet, you absolutely should. Okay, next is one of those golden age mysteries I was talking about. This is Patricia Wentworth's The Amazing Chance. Ugh, I'm trying to move this because I know these books are kind of glary. They're a little shiny. I loved this. So this is about, there's these two brothers, they're twins, and they go away to war. And before they go away, one of them gets engaged, and in the war, they go missing. But then many years later, one of them is found. And I don't want to say any more than that because this is full of spoilers. But I think if you like books that keep you guessing, and if you enjoy golden age mysteries, this book isn't necessarily about a murder. It's more of mistaken identity. But I loved this. It kept me guessing the whole time. I kept wondering which one it was, and you know, how was the woman gonna feel about it, and how it was gonna affect her and her future, because she's kind of moved on with her life. And yeah, I found this really thoroughly enjoyable. Like, if you just want a fun, fast-paced book to keep you engaged, I'd recommend this. And finally, for this part 1 of 2, this is Bryn Greenwood's All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. So I struggle with this one a little bit too, because the subject matter is a heavy one, and it's something that can affect me. So it's kind of one of those things where, you know, people tell you about trigger warnings. This is heavy. This is about a relationship with a very young person with a much older person, and basically a child to an adult, and what that looks like. And yet in some points of this, it's beautiful. So I struggled with that. But this book is basically about a young girl whose family is involved in drugs, and especially her father, and her mother is basically just disappearing. She's gotten so into the drugs and into the unhealthy relationships, and she's basically just cast herself to the wind. And it's about this little girl trying to grow up in that situation, what that looks like, how she copes, how she deals, what she gets involved with. There are some redeeming characters in this book, I will say. There is an aunt and her family that get involved to try and help, and they are lovely people. But this book is just, it's like twisted and beautiful at the same time. It's about so many different things. It's about like grief and grief of a childhood and never being allowed to be a kid and what that looks like, and familial relationships and love of a sibling, and just is so good and so hard to read at the same time. It's definitely one I would recommend if you enjoy books that feature complex family relationships, if you enjoy books that study addiction, if you enjoy books that study complicated coming-of-age stories. I loved it. As you can see, I'm still like moved by it. This book, it got to a lot of different places in my heart. And I think if any of those things are at all intriguing to you, I would definitely check this out. But look into the trigger warnings before picking it up. So those are all of my books for my best books of 2020 part 1 video. Please watch out for part 2, which will be coming soon, which will be my top books of the year. I'm really excited to film that one. I will leave down below my honorable mentions video, which I did recently. Yeah, just some really lovely book. I really explored my reading last year, different genres, tried a lot of different stuff, and I was rewarded for it. I found a lot of really memorable books. So I can't wait to share those with you. I hope you enjoyed these today. Let me know down below if you've read any of these, what you thought about them, and let me know what your top few books of the year were, or if you have a video, I'll link it below and I'll try and check it out. So yeah, I hope that everyone's doing good so far in this year 2021. I hope that you're taking care of yourselves and being kind to yourselves. Thanks so much for being here with me today. Farewell for now. Bye-bye.